What's going on, everybody? Mike here from RoughCut Tutorials, and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to take a look at a keyframing technique called Time Remapping. So at the end of this video you'll be able to do this.
I just want blue notes, I just want Euro. Smoking on good though, wishing from Pluto.
If you're serious about mastering your editing skills, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to know when new tutorials are uploaded. So time remapping is the process of speeding up or slowing down sections of a clip. So what I've got is a clip here that was shot at 120 frames per second, which gives me the ability to slow it down. So I've dragged that to the timeline. It is about 7 seconds long, and I've got into effect controls. Now, time remapping is one of your default setting options. So you don't necessarily have to go into effects and go and find time remapping. It's there by default. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and decide what I want to do with this clip. So if I just play it, it's in normal speed pretty much throughout the entire clip. And that's the end of it right there. Quite simple. But what I want is the first part of the clip to play in normal speed. And then as soon as it gets, let's just say, to where this line on the track is, that's where I'd like it to actually be in slow motion. And then to about here, then back out to normal speed again. And I'm going to do that by using a technique called time remapping. So first things first is I'm going to go to the section of the clip where I would like it to start going into slow motion. So pretty much where that line was. Then what I'm going to do is go and add a time remapping keyframe by hitting that little option there, add/remove keyframe. And there I have it. So in theory, what I can do is, you see these two lines over here. If you do not see them, you'll have to just extend them, this time remapping viewer down here, as well as the one for speed. So if I click and drag one of these lines up, it will speed that section, anything after that keyframe, up. If I click and drag that line downwards, it will slow that section of clip down. But the thing is that I don't want to have anything after this point where this keyframe is to be the same speed, because later on I would actually like it to go back up to normal speed. So I've added my first keyframe. I haven't played around with the duration of these lines at all. And I want to just move my scrubber to the point where I'd like to have my clip go back out to normal speed. So that last little section, that's where I want it to be out back to normal speed again. And I'm going to add myself another keyframe. So let's just quickly have a look at what's going on here in effect controls. So I've got my first section of clip. Then I've got a section of clip between my two keyframes. And then I've got my last little section of clip over there. So I've essentially, with keyframes, divided up my clip into 3 different segments. So what that allows me to do now is to start playing around with the speed of those different segments. So I'm not going to adjust the speed before the 2 sets of keyframes or afterwards either. Principally because I only want to have this section of clip slowed down. So it also gives you an indication over here where your velocity is. So currently, if it says 100, there are no adjustments there at all yet. So what I want to do is I want to slow this section of clip down, and I can do that in 2 ways. I can either click and drag the section of clip down. You can see that my velocity is dropping. So I'm dropping this down now to about, let's just say, 35%. So if I play that back now, that section of clip is in slow motion. So let me just play that again. So now it's a normal speed, instantly into slow motion when it gets to that keyframe, and it should go back out to normal speed when it hits that second keyframe. Pretty much there. Now it's back out to normal speed. So I'm very, very close to where I would actually like it to be. And I did mention that there was a second way of doing this, and that is actually doing it in the timeline. Now, the thing is that we don't see our keyframes down here in the timeline yet. So what we'll have to do is tell Premiere Pro what keyframes I would like it to show in the timeline. So you do that by going right-click on the timeline, all the way down to the bottom where it says Show Clip Keyframes. And we're going to choose Time Remapping and then Speed. Now here you can see that your 2 keyframes have appeared, as well as your velocity line, which works in exactly the same way. If you drag it up, it speeds the clip up. If you drag it down, it slows that section of clip down. Now there is one little issue here, and that is when I play it and it gets to that first keyframe, the transition is so abrupt. It's almost instantaneous from going normal speed down to 35% speed. So what you can do with the time remapping keyframes, I've just zoomed up a little bit into my first keyframe. You can actually click and drag and split these keyframe segments apart. You see what I did there? I'm going to do the same for that one, just a little bit. Now what you're doing is that the further you split them apart, the longer the time transition is going to take between normal speed and your slow motion segment. If I play that, can you see how gradual that transition is when it gets to that line? So I play at normal speed and then gradually into slow motion. And the same thing will happen when it gets to the second keyframe. And there you have it. So what you can do is you can actually decide how long or how fast you would like these transitions to occur. So what I've done now is I've just extended, or should I say expanded, these 2 keyframes to ultimately make my transition in time happen over a longer period, making it less abrupt. And then back out to normal speed. And again, once you've done that, you can actually get a lot more creative now. You can actually add more keyframes in between these. You can delete a keyframe, like say for example, if you don't want it to go back out to normal speed, you would like it just to play fully in slow motion, you can actually just click and drag and select both of these halves of that keyframe. And if you just hit backspace, it will get rid of it. And now the rest of your clip is just going to be playing in slow motion. So you do have those options. Just from experience, what I would recommend when playing around with your time remapping settings is that if you speed up or slow down sections of your clip, that also determines your length of your clip here in the timeline. So say for example, if my original one only played over 7 seconds, if I've slowed a section of that down, it will actually play now over a few more seconds. So if you've actually got clips after this in your sequence, this will overwrite it. So I highly recommend doing your time remapping first and then going back to actually add your adjacent clips to that. Or what you can do is just edit on a completely different video layer.
I just want blue notes, I just want Euro. Smoking on good though, whistle from Pluto.
And there you have it. Thank you very much for watching, and tune in next time for another exciting tutorial. If you have any suggestions or what you would like me to cover in a future episode, be sure to drop it in the comments below. Please show your support for this channel by subscribing and smashing that like button.